I didn't recommend locking anything down. I recommended to the president that we shut the country down. First of all, I didn't recommend locking anything down.
I didn't recommend locking anything down. I didn't recommend locking anything down.
I didn't recommend locking anything down. I recommended to the president that we shut the country down.
With Broken Truth, this is John Davidson, and today we have Scott Street and Warner Mendenhall attorneys for a recent case that is no longer, I guess, it's out the window. Apparently, the Trump administration, in a very adventurous week, has decided to remove the mandate for immigrants coming into the country legally for green cards to have vaccines. So, Scott, Warner, Scott, tell us the summary of your case and what the outcome is.
Well, I wouldn't say the case is out, John. I mean, we filed this case on behalf of an American citizen and his wife, along with the help of Leslie Manookian and Health Freedom Defense Fund, to challenge the government's policy of requiring proof of COVID vaccination for green card applicants. Right. This is a policy that had been implemented back in the fall of 2021. You know, when mandatory vaccination was the rage, and the government had insisted on continuing it, despite evidence that COVID, as we all know from practical experience, is not a vaccine-preventable disease, which is the legal requirement for requiring it. And government hadn't changed that policy, so we filed a lawsuit. We went to court. We had a hearing, a conference with the judge today, and a few hours before that conference, we started hearing word that the new administration had changed at least part of the policy. So certainly a helpful development, something that's very, very smart and long that we've been longing for, long awaited, but certainly not over.
Yeah, this is an interesting development, though. I mean, where do you guys go next?
Well, I think what we do, Warner and I are both, looking at this is, this is a productive first step. I think it's an indication by the new administration that, look, echoing the common sense policies that we heard about on Monday. This is a common sense reaction to a policy that just doesn't make. I mean, it was arbitrary on its face. It was based on flawed science and flawed data, of course, right? But it was also arbitrary because, as we all know, people could come to this country on tourist visas without showing proof of COVID vaccination. They can come across the southern border and come into this country without showing proof of anything, essentially. So to require that people who are law-abiding citizens who just want to come here and work here and contribute as Americans lawfully made no sense. So I'm hoping the second and third and fourth steps that the government takes are also reflect that common sense, that pragmatism. But, we're still dealing with the government, and, the left hand doesn't always talk to the right hand. And sometimes you got to keep fighting until all the changes that need to be made have been made. And that's what Warner and I are doing. And, and we'll know more, I think, in the coming weeks.
Okay, great. Warner, and what was your role in this case?
I volunteered to serve as local counsel in this case. I happened to be licensed in the Maryland District Court, so I was able to perform that function. Obviously, John, you know how interested I am in all of these policies, and really one of the brilliant efforts in this case is to get the CDC to declare that COVID-19 is not a vaccine treatable illness.
Right.
And that's one of our demands. And that demand doesn't go away just because they change the policy here. And I think importantly for your audience to understand is that we've had a real sea change in the law regarding the scope of agency power in general. And this complaint that Scott drafted is really very good in showing that the Immigration Service and the CDC are really acting outside the scope of the power that they were granted by Congress. That's the Loper decision that came out last summer that has really reframed all of these types of arguments. And I think going forward, I think this is important because there's lots of other shots that are supposedly vaccines or are treating illnesses and they claim are vaccine treatable, and they just are not. So I think this opens up the door not just to the COVID-19 vaccine, but to many others.
Yeah, it's it's a crazy week. You look away for 2 minutes and there's 1,000 developments that you missed. This is a huge one. I mean, I think Riley Gaines is a famous person who's dealing with this, correct?
That's correct.
So what other developments have happened this week that you want to bring up? What was remarkable to you? I think the WHO withdrawal was a huge benefit for the country. But what else?
Go ahead, Scott.
Well, I think that there's, yes, speaking as someone who is a long time, Democrat, someone who's spent much of my life working in, Democratic Party politics. I think there is the image of Barack Obama walking in looking completely defeated and alone into the Capitol Rotunda on Monday was very stirring to me as someone who had been a long time admirer of his and been very disillusioned by what happened under his presidency, both with respect to issues like this, but other constitutional norms, whether it was going after reporters and seeking their saying as the son of a reporter and a former reporter myself. And so I think that it is it is a new day, and there are a lot of common sense, like bipartisan solutions that unfortunately people just haven't been paying attention to because it wasn't deemed politically popular. And I think now they are seeing the powers that be are seeing that in fact it is popular, and people, regular ordinary Americans, want our elected officials to exercise some common sense instead of what we've been seeing the last few years.
Yeah, that's important that you say that because I voted for Obama for his first term, and I think there was that we really hoped there was going to be some positive change, and it did seem to be worse and more of the same. And that was remarkable. I mean, especially if you could hear from the Capitol auditorium or wherever they had the big overflow for the inauguration, the boos that he was getting as he walked in were profound. And hopefully whatever lingering control he's had over this system of government for the last few years is gone, and we can start doing the right thing. And that doesn't necessarily mean every single idea that the Republicans push is a good one, and every single idea that the Democrats propose is a bad one. My hope is that this is a better second pass.
I agree 100%. And I think that as an ex-politician, and because of my political experience at a local level, of course, I don't trust any politician. It is incumbent upon the people of the United States to hold their politicians to account, no matter which party is in, no matter how much we believe in them. We have to hold them to account, and we have to set the agenda for our country. And I think that's really, I think that the Democratic Party has completely lost the plot at this point and discredited itself completely. That's what's happened. But it's because they sold out to the World Economic Forum and to the globalists. And Trump just came in and he picked up on democratic principles that we used to know were democratic principles, such as freedom of speech, such as labor rights, such as trade, immigration, and such as traditional family values. All those used to be in the Democratic Party, and unfortunately at this point, I think they're gone. So I think the Democratic Party has a lot of work to do to be even viable at the national level at this point.
Yeah, I never identified as a Democrat, so I don't have that in my DNA. But with the 78 executive orders rescinded on day one, the WHO, there's definitely a lot of positive momentum for things that many of us have been concerned about and advocating for. However, what did you guys think of Larry Ellison yesterday?
He is really, he needs to be enlightened. He treats human beings as computers as if we're plug and play. And I actually did make a comment on that because, I'm studying the mRNA process. We're dealing with thousands and thousands of injured people at this point. And the reality of it's like getting in a car that has no brakes and really no steering wheel because it'll go anywhere in your body. We don't know where it's going to end up. And there's nothing to stop the creation of whatever protein it's going to be creating. That's a genetic process without any brakes. Who would put that in their body? And that mRNA platform needs to be taken off the market.
Yeah, there's so much obsession with that platform and that method of vaccination, whatever you want, if you even call it that, genetic therapy,
Right.
genetic modification, truly, that they haven't answered questions for. The NIH Gate research that we've done that showed that there was a link between the spike protein created by this thing and various P53-induced cancers has not been addressed. Now, it does appear that Siri finally got through, and they got records today that they've been going for years on critical vaccine information. That's a good start. Are they going to withhold this kind of evidence from mRNA platforms? I mean, this is, there's a lot of people calling out like, hey, why aren't you guys shouting about this mRNA thing Ellison was promoting? And so this is my shout, right? This is, we have to keep them accountable. Granted, this is early, so it's not exactly like what they say is going to come to fruition.
Larry Ellison is no one to go to for medical advice, for God's sake. And he should not be out there. He's completely ignorant of what he's talking about.
I will say, for 80, he looks pretty good.
Well, yeah.
I mean, granted, if you have billions of dollars to spend, you can probably afford to look pretty good.
He does look good, but if he took the shots, his life got shortened significantly.
Right. So how do we hold them accountable, as they go forward? I mean, granted, this is just a big PR. This, as far as today, yesterday was PR. But what does it mean? That $500 billion number, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, it's a lot of money. Look, we need to continue to tell the truth. The truth is what was broken. That's why you have Broken Truth TV. So we need to restore the truth to the discussion. And John and Scott, I know you guys are doing that. Our group, freedomcouncil.org, is trying to bring in the truth from all the victims. We're trying to get experts organized to analyze that truth. And we've got lawyers out there who are willing to defend and litigate the truth. And that's what we're about. I am very impressed with all the work that Kevin McKernan and the group of experts that are working with him around the world. They're showing DNA integration, at least in the cancer cells. We have a serious problem, but the truth will set us free. It'll clarify how dangerous this platform is.
Wonderful. And to wrap it up, Scott, when do you think that your clients will actually be able to get past this and be home and just be a family and live and pay taxes?
Well, I'm hopeful that this will be sorted out in the first few months of this year. We are well positioned. We have a thoughtful judge who I think understands the practical side of litigation and how the transfer of power can change things, and how litigation can serve as a very useful tool to hold the government to its word, right, and to hold the government to the law. So I'm hopeful in the next couple months we will have a final resolution, but who knows?
Now, is that a normal process when a big change like this comes, especially with an administration? Do judges typically hold cases that are in limbo like this until the administration takes over?
It's not uncommon. I mean, there are. It's not uncommon, particularly with, I'd say, issues, high profile issues like this, where you have, you might expect to see a change in policy or a change in practice from one administration to the other. So,
Warner, what do you perceive that this could affect your Pfizer Ketam case with Brooke Jackson?
Well, it should affect it. I have certainly reached out because I think that the federal government needs to change its position. There was fraud in the clinical trials. That's what she showed very early on. Everything that came after that, and Naomi Wolf's group, researched additional documents and poured through those documents that were released through a FOIA, shows that that fraud was really an ongoing thing. And the federal government came into court and told the judge to dismiss the case because it was contrary to the public health policy of the United States. That should be changed as of now. It should be the public health policy of the United States that there should not be any fraud in clinical trials proving up drugs or vaccines. That's a very basic, obvious policy. We also think that Congress, when it passed the most recent change in the law in 1986, the biggest major change, it really said in the congressional record that they expected that some government bureaucrats would be corrupt. And we've just had Fauci's pardon. We know that he's corrupt. He's admitted by accepting the pardon to a crime in my book. And so the court needs to take that into account.
Yeah, it should be an interesting few months.
Yes.
And with that, gentlemen, thank you so much for your time, and best of luck in your cases.
Thanks,
John,
John.
thank you so much.
With Broken Truth, this is John Davidson signing out.
Freedom Council is nothing without all of you. How do we go about getting people held criminally responsible for their acts? The military is still at risk. Election interference, the medicalization of childhood. These drug dealers like Pfizer and Moderna, we can seize their property. We develop our litigation through conferences like this. It's going to come through communications. It's going to come through conversations. And Freedom Council is that conversation.
For information, visit freedomcouncil.org.